Australia's Great Barrier Reef is, right? So it is estimated that by the year 2030, it's going to be irreversibly and completely damaged. By that I mean that it's going to be bleached, and after it's bleached, it's going to dissolve. Ocean acidification, it's one of the reasons, one of the main reasons why the Great Barrier Reef is disappearing is because of something called ocean acidification. And I'll be talking about what ocean acidification is, why it's such a big problem in the environment around the globe. And I'm going to be talking about possible solutions that the U.S. Can look for, can do, I guess, and the outcomes of those possible solutions. So first, I'm going to be talking about ocean acidification. According to Conserve Energy Future, ocean acidification occurs when there is a high concentration of CO2 in the environment or in the oceans. When the acidic molecules of carbon dioxide, which is CO2, mix with the water, it decreases the pH level of the water, making it more acidic. One of the reasons why there's a lot of CO2 in the environment and the oceans is waste disposal, improper land management, and industrialization. And according to Boyle, the National Academy Press 2018, dissolution, which is what ultimately happens to bleached coral reefs, it's just a small part of the problem. So there's a lot of problems because of an excessive amount of CO2 in the environment, and which ocean acidification is one of those problems. But I'm just gonna, for the sake of this speech, I'm just gonna stick to coral reefs just to show examples of how bad it is. So I'm gonna be talking about a possible solution. But to come up with a solution, we must really understand what's at stake. So according to Verroots +1 2016, coral reefs serve as natural breakwaters, which means they're kind of sort of like mangrove forests, if you guys know what those are. They take the impact of possible waves that could become tsunamis. And they did research that showed that living coral reefs take from 21% of the wave impact and on, and around 500 million people worldwide depend on coral reefs for fishing or for personal use for fishes. So once they become dissolved, they get bleached, there's no fishes and there's no breakwaters for possible tsunami waves. And according to the Environmental Protection Agency, they proposed something called Phase 2, which is basically a very strict regulation on vehicle companies, and they basically make them their cars need to be very efficient. And under this program, 270 million tons of CO2 would be reduced from the atmosphere just in the United States, over the course of lifetimes of all the cars, right? And they also estimated that a regular personal use car emits about 4.6 tons of CO2 into the environment every year. Phase 2 it's probably not going to pass just because companies have a lot of power, but they said that it has the potential, if it would pass and it would be implemented, has the potential to influence other nations. So what would happen if, let's say, this were passed, or let's say cars were banned, personal cars, except for the use of public buses and commercial and air travel, the levels of CO2 would plummet. So oh my God. Okay, next I'm going to be talking about outcomes if these solutions are implemented. According to Normile Science 2009, once coral reefs become bleached, once coral reefs become bleached, it's irreversible. They can't come back to life. Once they're dead, they're dead. And coral reefs, fully formed coral reefs, take about 10,000 years to complete. The Great Barrier Reef alone took about 100,000 years to complete, just because it's the biggest living organism in the world. And it has been around for 20 million years prior to us. No, prior to now, not us. And basically they're gonna have to build from scratch. But I mean, I feel like it's still worth it to create solutions for excessive CO2 because it doesn't only affect ocean acidification, doesn't only cause ocean acidification, sorry. And according to Yang Energy Policy Volume 37, 2009, they did a scenario analysis where they showcased that if the US implemented something like a solution for CO2, kind of like phase 2, something very strict that would limit the emissions, by the year 2050, CO2 emissions would be 50 to 80 times below 1990 levels, which would obviously aid in the reversal of acidification. But in order for that to happen, there needs to be things, like, in order for these solutions to be able to take place, there needs to be things that have to be done for. For example, there needs to be more efficiency in cars, which is what phase 2 is proposing. There needs to be different energy sources that have to be in demand, like renewable energy sources, and travel management, because there is a lot of demand for air travel, which is a big pollution, like contributor to pollution. Pollution, but like CO2. And yeah, that's it. And there is a mini documentary, online called Acid Test. And I talked about what ocean acidification is, a possible solution, and what outcomes would happen if these solutions were implemented. And thank you.